to LULI'S Homestead. Today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple summer beverage that can be stored for winter months. It's called Kompot. Kompot is a combination of three very simple ingredients. Some sort of a berry or fruit, sugar, and water. That's it. And you can store away the most delicious juice for the winter months. Okay, so I'm going to show you the things that you're going to be needing for today's canning. Make sure everything is clean and sterilized. Okay, so what we have is our jars. I washed them and sterilized them. Lids and covers, I washed them, and I'm going to be pouring boiling water over them in a little bit when I'm ready. I have a funnel that I also washed and sterilized. I have my measurement cups that I need. I have a magnet that I'm going to be using to pull out the hot lids. I have a ladle to pour boiling water. Now, of course, you can use a cup to do that, but you know, when I use my ladle, it reminds me of my mama. And when I do that, it's as if she's with me in the kitchen. Okay, and then I have my jar picker-upper. So first I'm going to prepare my berries. I already washed them all, and I'm going to be cutting up the strawberries into smaller chunks. We don't need to have them in such big pieces, okay? Okay, so I'm going to be cutting them up and I'm going to tell you a story. You guys ready for a story? And the story is about why do I do what I do. So there is an old story about, true story by the way, about this pharaoh back in Egypt many years ago that had a very strange dream. And in his dream, he saw 7 very fat cows and 7 very thin cows. So the weird 7 emaciated skinny cows came out and ate up the heavy, fat, healthy looking cows. Can you imagine waking up from that dream? What in the world, right? But it also happened that there was a person in the land who could interpret that dream, and his name was Joseph. He was a Hebrew man, a very young man who was taken to Egypt as a slave. Well, he was very smart, and he was able to interpret the dream. And the interpretation was that there will be 7 years of plentiful harvest, and then 7 years to follow of complete famine. The Pharaoh was so impressed with his interpretation that he made him to be in charge of the entire land when it comes to harvesting and storing away. So they were harvesting lots and lots of food in those 7 years, and they stored away plenty. So when the 7 years of famine came, they had enough to feed the whole nation. So that's the moral of the story. Save away when there is an abundance. Okay, so for our recipe, we're going to need this much. For 1 jar, this is a quart jar. For those who are using metric system, this is 1 liter jar. We're going to need 1 cup of berries. Of course, I'm going to be very generous with my berries. It's going to be a heaping cup, okay? And then I'm going to cover that with 1/2 cup of white sugar. You can use any sugar you want. I am using cane sugar because cane sugar is non-GMO. Now, remember how I said that there is an optional ingredient? I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice. You don't have to do that. And then my last minute, I've decided not to put mint simply because it's raining outside and I don't want to go outside in the rain. Okay? And now I'm going to be covering this with boiling water. You guys ready? Start slowly, okay? So you don't want to crack the jar. But my jars are still quite warm from sterilization. And I'm going to be covering them pretty much to the top, okay? Maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch headspace. All right, that's all I'm gonna do at this step of the game, okay? The next step is gonna be when we actually gonna let this all sit and rest for about 40 minutes, okay?
Okay, so 40 minutes passed. At this point, we need to strain the jars back into the empty pot. The jars are hot, so I use a towel to hold it, not to burn myself. I use an old sieve to hold all the berries back in a jar and just strain it all in, because at this point, the liquid that came out of the jars has to go back on the stove to bring it back to boil. I'm going to keep all the jars covered in the meanwhile to keep them warm under a towel.
Okay, so the juice that we strained a little while ago boiled, and now I'm going to be pouring it back into my jars. I had my jars covered up with a little fruit in the bottom still sitting there. They were just chilling under a towel. Okay, all right, I'm using my ladle, and here we go. I'm going to fill up my jars with about 1/2 inch, maybe an inch of headspace. In case you're wondering what headspace means, it means how much space is going to be left from the liquid to the top of the jar. Earlier also, when I was talking about what supplies I need, I did not say that I need a debobbler. No, I lost a debobbler. Don't know what happened to it. So debobbler basically is a plastic stick that you use to move around to kind of shift any kind of bubbles around that may be hidden within the berries. So I'm just using, I sterilized it, but it is a plastic, just a plastic stick I'm using here. So I'm just gonna swirl around. I'm going to take my moist paper towel and I'm gonna wipe the rims. And the reason for wiping the rims is to make sure there's no sugar left, make sure there is no any kind of particle of the berry, so that way will be a good seal on my jars. All right, now I'm gonna be putting my hot lids. Look at them. I covered them with boiling water. All right, so here it is. They sterilized. Come on. And it has to be finger tight. Finger tight means that it's just not super tight, just too finger tight. I'm going to fill them all up and I'm going to put them into my bath canner, water bath canner, which I will show you guys in a minute, okay? Okay, so now it's time to put these jars into the hot water bath canner. You will notice that my canner looks a little strange. It's because it's missing its rack. Well, I don't know what happened to it, but it went rusty. So I decided to throw it away, and instead I just put a towel on the bottom of the canner so the jars don't clink. Hey, that's how my mama did it, and they came out just fine. Yeah, look at these beauties. Look at that. They changed the color from this pale pink to now this almost maroon color.